Okay, here we go. Episode number 2 here on hometownhockey.ca. My name is Chris Savard. The top left there is my good friend Tim Cornett. This is a new podcast we started, episode 2. Some of you may have joined us last week when we had Ryan Donnelly from the Windsor Spitfires. If you're joining us for the first time, Tim grew up a Spits fan. I grew up a Royals fan, and so we're going to basically alternate as best we can between former Royals and former Spitfires. And tonight, I'm happy to introduce an old friend, Darren Colbourne, who's joining us all the way from Corner Brook, Newfoundland. Colby and I met when he was playing for the Royals back, well, it's got to be a couple hundred years ago now, I would think. And I got to say, it looks good seeing Colby in the stars and the stripes again. And Colby and I kind of went dark for a while. We connected recently through social media, the powers of social media, connect with some old friends. So Darren and I have been chatting a little bit through Twitter and almost had a chance to get together for a hello here down in southwestern Ontario last summer, but the stars didn't necessarily align. Just a quick intro, and then we'll jump right in here. According to HockeyDB, Darren Colbourne has played for 16 teams during his hockey career, 263 OHL games for the Oshawa Generals and the Cornwall Royals, over 40 university games, over 40 international games, 4 in the American Hockey League, 7 in the International Hockey League, 91 roller hockey games, and 421 ECHL games. Over the next little bit, we're going to chat a little bit about all of these pieces of Darren's career. And Darren, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for agreeing to join us tonight.
Well, boys, it's a pleasure. And like I said, that's an awful lot of teams. I didn't realize it was that many. It was, I guess, and when you emphasize old friend, I guess that kind of means that, doesn't it? There's a lot of hockey teams involved there too.
Absolutely, and we were kind of at the beginning of your hockey teams, and then you went on to do a whole bunch of teams afterwards. So
you were number 2.
Wow,
that
right.
was team number 2.
Team number 2, so, yeah. Actually leads me well into my next question. It's been almost 20 years since HockeyDB has an actual entry for a season that you played in. Before we get into the hockey questions, what does life look like these days for Darren Colbourne?
It's pretty exciting. Again, it's I've got 2 grown boys, one 122, 123, 119. So one guy's finished university. I'm the other guy's in the middle of college. Still married to the same girl I was when I was in Cornwall. She's from here originally as well. So that's stayed together through all the things that we've gone through with hockey and all the other things that life brings. I work in the business world. I'm with a company that you guys are very familiar with, PharmaSave. So I'm a territory manager for Newfoundland and Labrador. I'm the only guy out here, so I guess I've got a bit of job security. So, but anyway, that could change any day with stuff that's going on now. But I'm having fun and enjoying life, and I don't play any hockey anymore. I do some coaching with the senior team here, which is also called the Royals.
I know we've got a couple of Royals questions for you later in Corner Brook Royals.
Yeah. And I play a bit of baseball in the summertime, and hopefully to get back on the baseball field here in the next couple of weeks. So if the weather permits and the pandemic subsides a bit.
Absolutely. So
what's the weather like out there?
It's raining now. It's been nice and warm lately, but it's Newfoundland, so you can get 3-4 seasons all in one day. So you never know, Tim. We're a totally different world out here. Like I said, you're surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean, and you don't know what you're going to get one day to the next. If you get 3 or 4 nice days in the 20s, count your lucky stars.
So through most of your career, Darren, you wore number 25, and we think we talked about this. I think the 25 that's behind me was prior to your time. It would have been Mike Tomlak, perhaps, or somebody else. But was there a particular reason you wore 25?
Well, I was going to tell you the 25 started in Cornwall. I'll tell you the story about how the first game that I ever played in the OHL, first regular season game, was in Cornwall with Oshawa. And at that time, I was wearing, believe it or not, this is a trivia question. I got a bunch of trivia questions for you guys tonight. The last guy to wear number 88 before Lindros was yours truly.
Oh, there you go.
So I was a young buck, 17 years old, my first game with the Oshawa Generals, out on the ice wearing those lovely long Cooperalls, wearing number 88. And obviously everybody, when you come into junior camp, you're all excited because you're going to get new gloves, new sticks, new everything, except the new skates hadn't come in yet. And I was just coming out of midget, and being a cock out of midget, I had blue blades. So I step on the ice in Cornwall with the beautiful red Cooperalls and the nice Dow blue blades. And I think it was my second shift. I ran in. Actually my second shift. I got an assist on the goal, and I went behind the net. And unfortunately, I ran into Razor, and bango. Robbie now ready to go. His first OHL game the year before had over 450 penalty minutes with Whitby in Junior A. And here I played midget the year before, never dropped my gloves once. And anyway, he said, "Want to go?" I said, "Well, I can't say no." So boom, we started going, and did fairly well for about 20 seconds. And then I guess I got cocky. I tripped on a stick, and he went on top of me, and he proceeded to pound me in the back of my head for about 30, 40 seconds. And all I can remember is him in the net, Jim Pack. You remember Jim Pack, number 3, absolutely. Played with Oshawa, the only South Korean to win the Stanley Cup with Pittsburgh. He had him down doing the same thing he was doing to me. And I looked around, and my jersey was nowhere to be found. It was torn to pieces. He had it torn off me. I think it was ripped down between the 2 8s. And after that period, I had to go put on another jersey. But after that game, I had to wear a number 8 from that time on. Oh, so funny. Number 88 didn't last very long in my career.
And then when you came over to the Royals,
great. Yeah. So then stuck, and it stayed with me for the rest of my career.
That's great. That's great.
And just to show you guys, Chris sent me this shirt, right? Yeah. So this is what he got done for me on the back. It's the number 25 Colbourne on the back.
I love it.
See that? Yeah, and it's my jersey. Now it's the only one I have.
The reason I sent that T-shirt is I had promised Colby I'd put a puck in the mail that he'd given me back in the late 80s. I think it was your 100th career goal. Is that what it was?
That's right there, man.
I was cleaning out the garage. I got
it written on the back too. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome. And it took me months and months and months to send it, and I felt like a shit, thinking, well, I can't just send the puck now. I got to do something better to kind of make up for my tardiness. So I got to say, it looks great seeing you in a Royals jersey again.
Well, thanks, man. It's good to be in a Royals jersey again. In a 25, too.
Yeah, exactly.
We didn't want to rip the shirt in half. We didn't want to put 88.
No, it didn't. I think Eric was better off taking the 88. I wasn't flashy at that time.
So, as a two-sport athlete, I think you had the opportunity to play both, either baseball or hockey. What made you choose the hockey route?
I've been asked that question not a million times, but an awful lot, because I enjoyed both sports, but hockey was a 7-month a year thing. Baseball, I was good at it. I was a pitcher, catcher, could throw the ball. Had an opportunity to play U.S. college. But it was something in the summertime that I really enjoyed to play. But I had to make a split decision in the summer of '84. I had to make a decision between going all in for hockey or baseball, and I chose the hockey just because I did it for 7 months a year. In the baseball, I don't know, I wasn't as confident in my baseball abilities as I was in my hockey, because again, the more you play, I played 10 times more hockey than I did baseball, just because of the length of the season. And I just, I enjoyed playing it. I wish I had gone the college route sometimes to give it both a try.
Sure.
Again, it's, it is what it is. You look back at it and you say, I wish I could have done everything, but you give everything your best shot. The hockey, there's a full story behind the whole hockey part of it as well. I almost ended up coming home because, again, Oshawa didn't think I had the right stuff to fit the bill for their program at the time, and we'll get into that later on. But again, it was I just stuck it out, and I said I'll do whatever I have to do to stay here, and I did for a year and a half, and then things happened, and I ended up in Cornwall, which was a great opportunity for me and the people that gave me the opportunity to do it.
Okay. So maybe before we jump into some of the Cornwall stuff, let's talk a little bit of the roller hockey. I know very few players can say they had a chance to play professional roller hockey, and I've heard you tell some stories on other podcasts about some pretty unique times playing roller hockey and how you were treated and how that worked out for you. So we're going to just share a little bit of that with us before we move on to the Royals.
Well, for the people that weren't familiar or aren't familiar with what roller hockey was, it was the RHIs, which is Roller Hockey International. I went into it in the first year of it. It was, professional roller hockey, same rules as ice hockey. There was fighting. It was 4-on-4 rather than 5-on-5, so it was wide open. And people said, well, it must be slow. It's on wheels. And I said, well, no, it's not, because you've got 4 guys out there who can wheel. You can literally wheel, and you can go. And, say, well, how do you stop? Well, you learn to stop the same way you would on ice. You just put the different pressure on your wheels that you would on ice skates. And the stories that I tell of trying to transition from rollerblades or inline skates back to hockey skates is terrifying, because you think about skating on an inch wide going back to something that's a fraction of a centimeter. You're scared to death because you can't stop. And I went to a training camp in Germany right after 1 year, and they were going to send me home because I couldn't stop. And I said, give me a chance, give me a week, and I'll learn to stop again. But it was just like learning to stop all over again, because you're scared to death because you're skating on a razor blade. But to get back to the roller hockey story, Roy Summer, who was our coach in Richmond, we had a good team in Richmond in the ECHL, and he invited a bunch of us over to San Jose to play roller hockey that summer in '93. And I said, hey, 1993, I'm playing pro hockey. What else would I do in the summertime? So myself and the missus loaded up and went to San Jose for that summer. Went to training camp. And now roller hockey is a little different, obviously, because it's, we played in all the pro rinks, played in the NHL rinks, that type of thing, but you can't practice in the NHL rinks. So for that first year, we actually had to practice outside. So in San Jose, if you're not off the court by 11 o'clock in the morning, you're gonna your skates are gonna just fall right through the asphalt, because it's gonna be so hot. So it was a pretty country club atmosphere for the first year, because we had to practice outside. So we had to be off the rink by 11 o'clock.
Nice.
So that left a lot of time for golfing and other extracurricular activities. We're living in a great gated community and all that stuff. So everybody had lots of fun. And the next year we got better, and the following year we actually another trivia question for you. We were the San Jose Rhinos were the last team ever to win a championship at the Montreal Forum, when we beat Ivan Cornwall's team in the finals September 1st in '95. So it was a pretty surreal experience going out onto the Montreal Forum floor with over 12,000 people in the stands cheering for them. And we ended up winning in overtime to take the championship. So it was pretty cool. But what a great game! It was a superb way to get ready for the hockey season. It was a great team sport, and I don't know if you guys have ever tried inline skating or playing roller hockey. I don't know. There's not much gliding going on. Once you stop moving your feet, you stop. So you have to actually keep your feet moving all the time. So your legs were going to be in shape, different type of style, obviously, but a great way to stay in shape.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe I should try that.
Yeah. Well, man, I tell you, it's not just for hockey. It's for everything. It's a lot of fun, but watch the hills, Tim, because I think Chris probably heard this before, the story I told for training camp that year. Roy made us go to one of the biggest hills in Roy's from San Francisco originally, so the Bay Area. So the initiation for that team that year was we had to go right to the top of, I think it was Mission Hill or something like that, and we had to go straight down that hill. And if we were left standing at the end of it, this was the last thing we had to do before we made the team. So we're lucky enough we didn't have any wipeouts going down, but everybody made it through, and we rollerbladed back through Golden Gate Park and got on a bit of a tear after that for making the hockey team. But anyway, it was a good bit of fun. But like I said, stay away. Hey, buddy, how you doing back there?
Say hi to Darren.
There he is.
This is Tristan, Darren.
Hey, Tristan.
He just got off his new scooter.
I heard. Congratulations on the new wheels, man.
You got to. That's funny. The timing is good. You got a new pair of rollerblades today, so we're going to try and teach him that in the next couple days.
Well, you have fun. Yeah, no, it was great life, and like I said, I did that for 6 years. I had the opportunity to win two world championships, professional, and one double IHF world championship with Team Canada my last year when I was in Anaheim. So it was a pretty neat experience to not just win championships, but win for Canada as well, because they treat every part of their program, whether it's ladies, men's, inline, ball hockey, it's treated with a lot of respect, and that's what we learned a lot of things about team and pride and wearing the Canadian colors, just doing that. And I must say it was a pretty great experience, because it was right at the end of my career when we won. That was in 1998. So it was a lot of fun, and like I said, a lot of respect for Team Canada program.
That's awesome.
Good program.
So let's switch and talk a little bit about the Royals. Refresh my memory, because I can't remember, but today kids from the Rock end up playing in the Q, and two Newfoundland boys like you and John Slaney end up playing in the OHL. How did that happen back in those days?
Well, back in the day, I had good friends that ended up going to the Q. You could get drafted if you were from Newfoundland. I think it was any of the Atlantic provinces, as long as the team didn't have a Quebec Major Junior League team, you could get drafted to either league. So a friend of mine, I don't know if you can remember Darryl Williams. Darryl Williams actually got drafted to the WHL. Todd Gillingham got drafted to Verdun in the Quebec League 2 years after me. I never got drafted to the Q. I got drafted to Oshawa, obviously, in 1985. Sherry Basson actually drafted a bunch of Atlantic Canadians. He was down to see the Team Atlantic camp in 1980, the summer of '84. And he took names, I guess, obviously, because he drafted 5 of us from Atlantic Canada for their following draft. So I think he took a liking to what he saw. Now, I was the only one that ended up sticking with the Generals that year, because one of them ended up leaving, another one ended up going play for the Junior B team, or the Whitby team, and myself and Scott McDonald ended up getting traded to Cornwall. I don't know if you can remember Scott McDonald.
Yeah.
Scotty stayed with us at Mrs. A's, but he ended up retiring the year after. Just fell in love with hockey, and great hockey player, tough as nails, and could skate like the wind. But just fell in love with hockey, and missed him the following season. But for Newfoundlanders could have got drafted to either league. So myself and John Slaney, if he had been drafted higher to the Quebec League, he may have gone there. Thank goodness he didn't, because absolutely. He was quite a player and quite an addition to as a 16-year-old. To throw in there with old Owen Nolan, so not too bad 16-year-olds there on your team with him.
Yeah, pretty good start.
Yeah, but no, Newfoundlanders up until Newfoundland got a Quebec Major Junior League team, where they guaranteed that Newfoundlanders were going to have to go to the Q. And there's a big fight in Newfoundland right now, actually, that why would Newfoundlanders have to be limited to just going to the Q, because we don't have a team anymore. So, but I think what it is the Q gives Newfoundland amateur hockey money to draw from.
Well, it would have been a little bit before your time, but you might have remembered back in the day when Cornwall was in the Quebec League. So, Timmy, when they won the Memorial Cup there in Windsor, they were actually representing the Quebec League. So, the Royals had played in the Q. And I remember Branch at the time being very frustrated because guys like Howard, Chuck, and Gilmore were filling up barns in the Q, and Sherbrooke and Trois-Rivières and Shawinigan and Chicoutimi, but places like Oshawa, Peterborough, and Windsor weren't seeing these. Obviously Howard Chuck went on to be the first overall pick. So, and then they won back-to-back Memorial Cups. I think that was the end of that gig. They were getting pushed back over.
Well, Chris, I find it very strange that they actually switched to the O. Because they were first and second every year. Like they were perennial champions in the Quebec League, if not challenging every year. And especially after winning back-to-back Memorial Cups and then leaving, and then, like I said, not even getting a sniff after that for the next 10 years. Like I said, it's about 1991 when they left. Yep. And they switched to the OHL right after winning a Memorial Cup. And then, like I said, I looked at the standings of 6th, 5th, 4th, 6th. I think our team in 88, 89 was the highest ranking team. We finished 3rd in 89, which was a very good team. But I looked at Cornwall when they were in the queue. They were always 1st and 2nd and always challenging for the league championship, if not winning, and going to the Memorial Cup all the time. So it was very surprising to me that they actually left.
I'm not sure they had a choice, and we should probably at some point invite Tom Racine. Remember Tom from Cornwall Police Service? Tom's the local historian back home, and I think he was doing play-by-play for the Royals when you might have played there. And
he was.
I think
he might have a puck. He might have a puck we could look at too.
Yeah, exactly. I think some of my jerseys, I traded some pucks with Tommy for some jerseys, so maybe Tommy might be a good guest at some point for sure. But I think they were forced to leave, if I'm not mistaken, because if you look back in the OHL draft in the late 70s and 80s, Cornwall was drafting with the OHL, and they couldn't draft the Quebec kids. And I think the OHL got frustrated saying, listen, this doesn't make sense. We're cultivating this talent like Howard, Chuck, and Gilmore, but they're not playing in the O. And I think they were pushed in. And just a little point of a debate, and I'd have to check some of my notes that are buried in the garage where your puck was. But when I was on council later years and we came close to bringing the Royals back, at one point there was discussion about getting a team in the queue again, the old Montreal Rocket. You may remember those guys existed for a year or so. And there was interest from that team to move forward, but we had to navigate through the OHL and how that might fit into the OHL. And the big question was the drafting rights, and that whole discussion kind of reared its head again. So that's kind of where that question came from, because, today most Newfoundland kids end up somewhere in the queue and don't make it out this far out into the O. So. Yeah,
no, I think it's pretty much that reason, because they're not allowed. So and Newfoundland kids would love an opportunity to go, because you think about it, unless you end up spending time in one of the, there's an Ontario Hockey Academy, that type of thing. If you leave the island, which a lot of kids are doing now anyway, but the big thing now is, unless you're in the top 2% or 5%, you're going to Quebec Major Junior, or you're going to the OHL or WHL. You've given up any hopes of going down south to go to college.
Right.
But something that I never had the opportunity to do was, for every year that I played in the OHL, to receive a year of university. That came 2 years after that I left. So I kind of got gypped out of that, which is unfortunate, because I did end up going to Acadia University. Now I did have a bursary or whatever, but it would have been nice to end up getting some of it paid for at least. And it was part of the reason why I left early, because I said, you imagine going from playing over 100 games in your last year junior and then going to university and only playing 30. Life gets pretty boring. School is important, yes, but when you basically played pro hockey for the last 4 years, and then you end up going back and playing rec league, what it felt like when you're playing twice a week instead of 4 or 5 times a week, where it's just the flip-flop of more practice, less play, right? But anyway, it was a decision I made just for dollars alone. I decided to turn pro after my second year at university. And, I said, I can always go back to university, but my good years are starting to leave me. So I left after my second year at Acadia and turned pro.
Interesting. So in the late 80s, the OHL was very different than it is today. Especially here in Windsor, we see lots and lots of trades that come trade deadline, and teams are stocking up, and they're either buyers or sellers. But back in the OHL when you played, there was way less trades than there are today. Can you tell us about the circumstances that kind of got your trade for you and Scott to come from Oshawa over the Royals?
Well, I'll tell you what, it was a lot more than myself and Scott, because the Oshawa Generals that year had they number one, they knew that they were going to the Memorial Cup, or they had to play off. They knew that they were going to be one of the teams, because that was the year that they had to play the Super Series with North Bay, because they ended up playing North Bay in the finals. That was a big controversy that year. So number one, they were gearing up for a Memorial Cup run. I was in my second year. The year before, I only played 30-odd games, 40 games. I wasn't ready to step into that Oshawa Generals lineup. I needed to play. So after my first year, I said, okay, I'm going to go home, get ready to go. And I came back in better shape, that type of thing. So in 1986, 87, these guys were gearing up to either host the Memorial Cup or at least play in the Memorial Cup. So by November rolled around, I knew that I wasn't in the picture, because they were just they were far better than what they needed for me. I was basically a fourth line player at that point, and fourth line players don't score. They go out and they make sure they don't get scored on. I was getting 3-4 minutes of ice time a game. If I wanted to get drafted, and that's why you play in the OHL. Yes, it'd be nice to win a Memorial Cup, but it feels good to be able to play in it as well. So I knew I wasn't going to play, but they had a load of players that they couldn't play. They knew it, and unfortunately, and you talk about the difference of today and then. I didn't have an agent, so I had to walk into Sherry. Talk about intimidation. I had to walk into Sherry Basson's office and say, Sherry, I don't think I can play here anymore because I can't. I'm number one, I'm not playing, and I don't think I'm going to get the chance this year to do what I have to do to advance my career. And at that point, the light switched on, and he basically said, okay, well, he wants out. We've got to move him. You can't keep him around. And Scotty ended up getting thrown into the deal because they just had too many players, and they knew it. But they just didn't want to face the fact that they had to give up some young players because they had quite a team. They were unbelievable. They ended up beating North Bay in the finals of the OHL. And then for the Super Series to host the Memorial Cup, they then beat them in Game 7 as well. So that ousted North Bay as well. So North Bay never got to go to the Memorial Cup after getting beaten twice, right? So again, that was incredible. Nowadays they have 2-3 teams from the host league. But yeah, so my story was I went in and had to ask for a trade similar to Ryan. I realized that it wasn't for the fact, it was just the opposite, actually. I needed to play. He wanted to go play for a winning team.
Right.
I was at a different point in my career. I was 17, 18 years old, just coming out of a first year where I never played a whole lot. Had to fight quite a bit, actually, my first year. And I wasn't a fighter, but like I said, I would do whatever I had to do to survive. But I couldn't survive as a fighter on that team. As a fourth line player, I never really got to play.
Right.
So, but anyway, I asked for the trade, and boom, I ended up going to Cornwall. It was the best thing I ever did.
Well, it turned out pretty good for you, Cornwall. You certainly scored a ton of goals while you were there. And, in your final season there, you scored 51 goals. And scoring 50 goals in the OHL is no easy feat. And I remember I probably saw pretty much every one of them that happened in the Civic Complex at the time. Do you remember where you got number 50 and who it was against?
I remember it very well, actually, Chris. It was because it was I was congratulated by, and as soon as I say the name, you'll know who it was. But as soon as it happened, he skated over to me and tapped me on the pads. He said, "Great job, Colby. Congratulations on number 50, Mike Dagenet." So with Peterborough. And actually it was fun because I scored on Boy Soon, who I ended up playing with in Dayton later on. So I always gave it to him about that one. But it was in Cornwall. It was against Peterborough. And Mike Dagenet, who was on the ice for that actual shift, came over and tapped me on the pads and said, congratulations. So I thought it was pretty neat that he would do something. Now, he was always good sport and a good gentlemanly player anyway. But, a couple guys tap you as you're going off the ice and that, but Dagenet actually came over, and I thought he was going to take his glove off and shake my hand, but I said, no, you better not do that.
That's awesome.
But yeah, no, I remember, there's a few goals that you remember that are pretty, like you said, scoring 50 in the O is an accomplishment for anybody. And there's guys that have scored 80. You got your Ray Shepherds, but 50 in that league in 64, 66 games is quite a feat. And I very proud of that one. And myself, lucky both of us, myself and Steve Maltese, had 50 here. And whenever you can get two on one line to do it, there's a bit of offense. And I think Cerrone had quite a year that year as well. But we just had a great connection that year, and Reg was the cog, and I just went to the net. They just fed me, and I just shot the puck. He was the workhorse in the corner. Cerrone set it up, and I just shot the puck. That's all I ever did. But
a good deal.
It's fun. It's good times.
Now, in your second season with Cornwall, you got 47 in 61 games. Do you remember why you missed those 5 games? And can you think of 3 other scoring chances you might have had that maybe?
Why I missed those 5 games, Tim? I got sent home in October. I played 2 or 3 games at the beginning of the year, and I got sent home because I had mono.
Oh.
I got sent home for 2 weeks because Doc Peachy in Cornwall, they did blood tests with everybody, and by that time, you know what, guys, I probably didn't even have it anymore because I knew how long it took for them to get back these results and all that. But they sent me home after my second game, and I can remember because I went home and I felt great. I was skating every day. I wasn't, I was not like I was in quarantine or anything. They just didn't want to. They wanted to make sure I didn't get anybody else on the team sick.
Yep.
And
that's pretty contagious disease, is it not?
Yeah, and again, that's how I missed those games. And you think about it, it could have a couple posts here and there, but missing 5 games at the beginning of the year when a lot of that stuff happens, you have your good games.
Yeah, you would have hit it for sure.
Yeah, well, again, I don't know for sure, but I had a good catch up though. In that year, I had a great night. Let's just say that I can remember. And Chris was probably there for this game that I did have the 10-point game, but I came back after that, and I just everything went in the net, and I just everything I shot went in, everything I passed, the other guy scored, and it was something.
That's quite a few.
Yeah, it is quite. Again, and at that point, I wasn't drafted, and I said, this will wake some people up. But again, when you're young like that, you think, oh my God, just because you score 10 points in the game doesn't mean everybody wants to sign you. But it just gives you that confidence that you can score.
Yeah, you got to think they'd be watching a little closer after something like that.
Well, they just want to see who the hell that was, and they said, that guy? What? He scored? But again, I think if anything, it gave me the confidence that that's what I needed to say. I can
one
play.
Of my questions later was going to be, do you remember where you were on, I think it was October 29th, 1987, and that was the date of yours. Yeah. It was against the Toronto Marlies. For some reason, I remember being in Toronto. Do you remember it?
No, it was in Cornwall.
It was in Cornwall, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing was,
because I remember I had the tape, and all I can remember is Fred and Tom talking to as I just scored my 10th point, and I think there was a minute left in the game, because I remember them talking about the whole game up until after the first period. I only had 1 point, and then it just went crazy. But Tim, he was the newspaper guy. Tim, I forget his name, because they said it on the air. They said, there goes Tim to go down and get the first interview.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so I had the tape. I can't find it now, though. So if I could ever get my hands on that.
That's funny. So, Tim, when I had to do the research I reached out to Stu, who's the stats guru for the Spitz here, and I knew somewhere in his brain he'd know it, and he knew the exact date and everything. Interestingly, though, your whole career, you were more of a goal scorer and than an assist guy, kind of like the whole Cy Young thing, and you actually had 4 goals and 6 assists that night. It was a little bit backwards compared to you figured to be a 6 and 4 on the goal side.
Well, the thing is, look at the 2 guys that I had on my line that night. That was Mitchell, who could score, and Maltese. So Chris, playing with those 2 guys, that either one of us could have done that. It just depended on whose stick the puck was on and when it happened. So again, it takes a lot of luck, but you got to have good players to play with. So I never would have had 6 assists if I didn't have Larry Mitchell and Steve Maltese on my line that night. Because I guarantee you, if Robbie Ray was on my line, I wouldn't have had 10 points. Right? Because he wouldn't have been on the ice long enough to be getting any of those goals. So, but no, it was, again, it takes a lot of luck in both regards with respect to shooting the puck and passing the puck and going to the net with guys of that caliber. And I think between the 3 of us, I think I had 10, Mitch had 8, and Reg had 6. So we had 24 points between the 3 of us.
I got to ask you, did you pull a goalie?
What's that?
Pull the goalie after?
No, I don't think so, because at that point it was we were beating the doors. We beat them 13-3.
Wow.
And at that point, I don't think anybody really knew if it was 11 points or 10 points. All I can remember, and Chris, you'll laugh at this, because Steve Odekirk was our trainer and our equipment guy and trainer. He was the guy, but he's Dale Howardchuk's godfather, basically. He's Dale and Steve are like that. And he said when I came off the ice after scoring my 10th point, he goes, "You still haven't broken any of Dale's records." Yeah, he was all happy. He said, "Hey, You might have 10 points, but you still haven't broken any of Dale's records.
That's awesome.
I guess that was a compliment from Odie, you know.
Absolutely. Well, it's hard to believe when you look, once Stu showed me where it is, if you look in the OHL guide and record book to this day, that game is still there. I think somebody else has since scored 11, but your name is still in the books as, 22 years later, it's still there. So it's got to be kind of cool.
Well, I remember that I was tied with Steve Thomas. Steve Thomas had 6 goals, 4 assists, and up until, I don't know if someone else scored 11, but Mike Kazicki from Sault Ste. Marie had the record, 2 goals and 9 assists. So he had some goal scorers on his line that night too, apparently. So but the record was 11. I came 1 away, but again,
okay. I thought it came after. I misunderstood. Yeah.
No, it was long before. Actually, I think it was 76 or something. So
interesting.
Back in the day of the steel blades. So all the power to him if he can get 11 points with that crap.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Anyway, no, it was just a thrill just to be out there and to be in the zone for that long. And it was a foregone conclusion after the second period that we were going to win. And Orval just kept putting us out there. And it was just, it's a shame that you have to beat someone by that much, but it was a pretty neat experience. But,
absolutely.
I apologized after the game to a few of the Marlies that I knew.
That leads me nicely into my next question. You played for former Jack Adams trophy winner Orval Tessier during your time in Cornwall, and he was affectionately known both in Chicago and in the NHL and in the Royal circles as Mount Orval. Do you have any favorite Mount Orval stories you can tell?
Oh, well, again, I owe everything to Orval Tessier. Orval Tessier is the one that had the faith in me, because you think about this, guys. I was brought into Cornwall. I was traded from Oshawa, and I was brought in as just a guy to throw in the with just asked to be traded. So they sent me to Cornwall, and I was just happy to go there. Right from day one, Orval Tessier put me on the first line. So he put me on the line with Larry Mitchell and Craig Duncanson. So that's a pretty big assignment. I ended up that year with, I think, 20 goals. I had 17 in Cornwall, and I had 3 or 4 in Oshawa when I left. But for him to have that faith and to have that foresight to say, you know what, I guess, I don't know, you watch a guy play and stuff. He said, you know what, he could have put me on the 4th line. He could have put me on the 3rd line. He could have put me on the 2nd line. No. He put me on the 1st line. And I was like, what is going on here? Does he know something that I don't? But anyway, it clicked, and I played well. And the following season, I ended up playing with Mitch and Maltese on the 1st line. So as soon as I got in Cornwall, I never spent 1 second not on the 1st line. Like it blew me away. And we had some great players in Cornwall when I first showed up, like Billy Bennett and Brad Belland and guys like that. And they must have been shaking their skin. Who the hell is this guy? Where did he come from? But Orval, like I said, Orval Tessier, I owe everything to him with respect to getting a chance to play in the OHL, number one, because I never got that coming out of Oshawa. And I learned a lot from him with respect to he gave you opportunities to play, and he gave you opportunities to make mistakes. Because if you made a mistake, he'd tell you about it, but he wouldn't sit you there for 2 periods and make you feel like a jackass because, it's the end all to be all if you get scored on. So he gave us chances to play. Orval Tessier was, when he spoke, you knew he meant it. And it wasn't one of these guys that's always talking. He just, when there was something to say, it was poignant. And he knew when to say it. He wasn't like, after a while when people talk so much, kind of like me, you want to say, okay, that's enough. Now we get the point. But he knew when to say it, and he knew when to shut up. And a simple tap on the back from him and a nod, you'd know that he was giving you the old settle down now, or you know what to do next time. But nothing but class from that man. And again, he when he spoke, like all of his quotes that you hear from his time in Chicago and the things that he did when he coached the Royals long before us, things that he said to the team to get them going. And that was him. He knew how to get to his players, but it was respect. It was respect on the side of the players towards Orval. And I think that's what made Orval so special. Never spent a whole lot of time on the ice with us. He had poor old Edgar out there with us for most of it. Edgar, I think, was in his 60s or 70s when he was the assistant coach before Brent came. Yeah. But it was rough times for a year there because Orval couldn't go on the ice, that type of thing, because of his afflictions, and but we got the job done. And like I said, my last 2 years we had very successful teams. And
actually, I was going to talk a little bit about the 88-89 playoff run. That was the year, as you said, you finished third in the Leyden division. So actually started off on the road in the playoffs. I think you made some notes here. You drew Toronto in the first series, won that one 4-2. Then you moved on to Ottawa, and I think at the time I was in university, so I'd go to all the Ottawa games, and we'd sit and say a little chat after each game, and then I'd make my way down to the home games in Cornwall. You won that series against Andrew Castles in the 67s, 4-2, and then the Eastern final was against the Petes. And I think what I remember the most about that series, and I'm not sure if I have it right, but Ty Domi was playing for the Petes. And I remember he threw on Reggie, Steve Malte coming through center ice, and the difference in height is sizable between Domi and Reggie. And Domi got him up around the nose and the chin area and never got a penalty. How do you remember that?
I can't remember that specifically, but I can remember we beat them the first 2 games. We beat them in Peterborough, and we beat them in Cornwall. So we were up 2-0 in that finals in the Leyden the Leyden division. And something happened. I can't remember if it was game 3 or game 4, and they were all close games. There was no blowouts. It was all close games, but they beat us 4 straight after that. And I don't know. And I looked at, it's funny you say that, because I looked at some of the stats there today. Cerrone had 19 goals in the playoffs that year. Reg had 14, and I had 6, I think. And again, still, that's almost 40 goals in the playoffs for one line.
Yeah.
But Cerrone was on fire. But we just number one, we didn't get much secondary scoring. We didn't get a whole lot from our second or third lines. But again, we just ran out of gas, I think, after game 2, and they beat us 4 games straight after that. And I know a couple of them were 1-goal games, but that's playoffs. You got to win those games. But I always talked. I don't know if you ever talked to Ken Gallinger. Ken always said if we had Robbie Ray that year, we would have traipsed all over everyone, because we needed that, I guess, spark plug I don't think it would have been close, because you need someone to take the pressure off not just your big guys, but your guys that are in the middle of the lineup, to say, you know what, we can do everything. We can skate, we can score, we can fight, we can back it up, and we can push them to the limit with respect to physical play. And I think that's what Robbie would have added. But obviously he turned pro that year and did that all year in Rochester. And he didn't spend much time in the A after that. He spent the rest of his career in the NHL. But I think that's what we were missing. We had some toughness, but we didn't have that Ty Domi answer, referring to what you were just talking about. And, I know we had Bobby. Bobby Babcock was a very tough individual. But again, you need someone to be out there with him every shift. And that's what we were lacking. And I think that changed the tide. Something in game 3 and game 4 made the difference. And
I might be remembering it wrong, but I almost remember that was what shifted the series, was that hit. I remember it being at center ice of the complex, and I don't even think Domi got a penalty. I might remember, like a guy like Tom Racine remembers everything. He might be able to tell me otherwise. Even Ken might be able to remember it.
Well, it's funny that you go up 2-0 and you lose 4 straight. And I don't know if, and Chris, I don't know if it was an injury. I don't know if it was something. It was nothing in the dressing room, because we were fine. It was just that I can't remember if someone wasn't at full strength. Because you think about it, Jesus, on our third line, we had Owen Nolan and Jason Hannigan and Paul Kane and Darcy Cahill. We had quite a lineup. And it had a great defense and a great goaltender. But something happened. You're right.
Schneider was still around at that time, wasn't he?
Schneider was still around too, yeah.
John Slaney and Tabaracci, I think, was the goalie. That was a hell of a squad.
Yeah. But again, great times, obviously. But I thought we were going to have a little bit of a deeper run. I could have scored a lot more, but again, you score as a line. Everybody on the line can't score. We had one guy that was lighting it up. Cerrone had 19 goals in the play. That's incredible. Not very often that happens, unless you're back in the early 80s when you got Lemieux scoring 40 and 50 in the playoffs. That's a little bit strange. But anyway, no, he was on fire, and so was Reg, for that matter. They were tearing it up, and I was just glad to tag along. I was getting assists and that type of thing, but only one guy can score on a line at a time, and you can't. Everybody on the line can't score at the same time.
Exactly.
But, it was their turn, and they were playing well. And but yeah, I thought we would have had a deeper run. Boo hoo, but Peterborough went on to win the league, and they didn't win the Memorial Cup, but it would have looked a bit better for us if they had.
Yeah.
But, again, they had a good team as well, but they had a little bit more team rather than individual guys, right?
Sure. So before we switch to some of your pro stuff, any funny stories come to mind when you think back to your playing days in Cornwall?
Well, again, you saw a lot of it because, again, and to give Tim an idea of where I lived at Mrs. Davina Alexander's house, and the first day I got sent to Cornwall, I went to another place, and I'll never ever say where it was, but I wasn't very pleased with it. It just wasn't what I thought was nice to live. So Davina and Catherine, her daughter, already had 4 guys staying at the house, and I went to the rink that day, and I told one of the boys that was said I can't stay where I am. I don't like it. I don't want to be there. And one of the boys ended up telling Mrs. A that we've got a new player that doesn't want to stay where he's at, doesn't think he's going to be able to stay there. So she said, well, tell him to come on over, bring his stuff. We'll find a place for him.
What's one more, right?
What's one more? And it's like I walked in, it was like a big old family. It was amazing. Awesome. Everybody sits down together, eats together, drinks tea together. Mrs. Alexander was from Leeds in England. And we had tea time every day at a certain hour and played cards. And but it was incredible. What an experience for a hockey player to live with 3, 4, 5 other guys sometimes. Had a roommate, that type of thing. And those are the funny things that you recall, Chris, is the guys that you played with and the personalities in that house. And, obviously when you get to have a few drinks, because most of the guys then were of drinking age that were living in the house, and you get silly and, women come into the play, and then all the stuff that happens after hours and trying to get guys out of bed to go to practice and get in a car the next day. And it's just, you can imagine it's bad enough with 1, let alone with 4 or 5. So
I remember one night, Timmy, you'll get a kick out of this. We were sitting out in the driveway, sitting on the porch, and we were having some pints, and then we ended up going out somewhere else after. And I don't know how it ended up, but a bunch of us ended up crashing at Mrs. Alexander's house. And so the Saturday morning or Sunday morning rolls around, and she's kind of doing a head count and recognizes, you're new. What would you like for breakfast, boys? And so she sat us down, as Colby said. We have all this breakfast, and just a gem of a lady. And probably about a decade later, Colby, I don't know if I ever told you this, I'm sitting on city council, and I'm at a planning meeting, and afterwards I'm having a conversation with the manager of planning. His name's Stephen Alexander. And as we get talking about hockey, for some reason, I make the connection that it's Mrs. A's son that I've been working with at City Hall for all these years. I remember Steve. Yeah, and then I'm thinking, oh shit, what does Steve know about all my council days, I'm supposed to be this respected guy and serious, and I was doing some partying. I think it was you, and Reggie was there sometimes, and there was Mike Ware. I can't remember else who was around those days. But.
Well, again, you could right now at this podcast, you could do, I'd say, a full year of guys that just stayed at Mrs. A's from the Royals, let alone just talking about Royals. So, but funny stories. Again, the funniest one, it's funny, it's gross, but I had just gotten traded to Cornwall. And forgive me for telling this story, but it's probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Because a lot of stuff had happened, and I say stuff because there was a lot of shit that went on in Cornwall before I got there. I remember hearing about, and you can remember all this, Chris, because you lived there. I remember at one point they all dressed up in camouflage and went up in the woods and had a game of war or whatever, and the cops had to come break it up because they thought there was an actual war going on in the area. And anyway, but when I got there, and there was a Christmas party at Paul Kane's aunt's or something like that, and she had a pool just outside of town somewhere, and we had to have Secret Santa. And this was, I don't know if you can remember this, but Craig Duncanson and Brad Belland did not like each other. So that was the year that I think Dunk broke Brad Belland's jaw. Yeah. And whatever happened, what happened. But anyway, for Christmas that year, and once we got around the pool, Belland basically relieved himself in a gift box and gave it to him for Christmas. A big old lump for Christmas. And everybody knew what was in that box, and Dunk never opened it. He just kept looking at it, because he knew what it was, and then he knew he had to open it because it was Christmas. I guess, and after that, they became friends. But I think up until that point, they did not like each other very much. But it was one of those stories where those guys, again, you never knew what you're going to get with that crowd. They were just a crazy group, and Mike Ware, one of my roommates, one of the nicest people in the world. But Mike actually had to get nylon knuckles put in, that he fought that much. The poor guy would come home from a game, and his 4 right-handed right knuckles you could see the bone. And it was incredible coming home every night and watching Mrs. A trying to patch him up after every game and say, Michael, you can't fight anymore, Michael. You can't fight anymore. And Mike goes, yeah, but if I don't, they'll send me away.
He can handle himself.
Oh, yeah. No, he was as good as gold. But I never had to worry about anything walking around Cornwall with Mike Ware. I can guarantee you that. Everybody was scared to be Jesus of him.
So you were drafted in 1988 by the Red Wings. Draft was held in Montreal that year. Did you go, and what was that experience like?
No, I didn't go. I call myself, I was a steal in the 11th round. So no, I didn't end up going. I wasn't projected to go, if at all, high. I know that my agent had an in with Neil Smith. Neil Smith was the GM at that point. I was told that I almost went to Boston the pick before, but they decided to pass or pick after, whatever. But yeah, Detroit ended up taking me in the 11th, and I went to 4 of their training camps. That year, actually, Jimmy Devellano came to see me play quite a bit. And in the playoffs, I guess where we didn't pull through, I never got the shot that to get the contract right out of junior. But they did invite me back to camp 4 years in a row. I had some good camps. My first camp was incredible. I played on a line with Adam Graves, and we tore it up, and they sent me to Adirondack. And that was when I got sent back to Cornwall as an overage. And I was the last cut from Adirondack because Graves stayed instead of me. So Graves had the opportunity to come back to Windsor as well, because he's the same age as me, Tim. And Gravy and I were sitting there, and we're saying, now he was still in Detroit, but as soon as he came down from Detroit, boom, I was gone from Adirondack, because he was the last guy. So anyway, I knew he wasn't going to go back and play overage. I knew he was going to play in the AHL or the NHL, but I stayed in Adirondack long enough that once I saw Adam Graves come down, I knew I was gone. I said, he's a first rounder. He goes there before I do. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, it was a great experience. You get to play with all the greats, Yzerman, Probert.
Sweet.
It was, again, you were real close to it, Tim. You would know those years, they were bad years, but still those guys were good. They were big.
Absolutely,
they were tough. But just to watch those guys operate, it was
and I still see Adam about once a year, run into him at the rink. So next time I see him, I'll tell him you said hi.
Certainly. And he used to always he called me Snipe. That was his nickname for me. And he was good friends with a good friend of mine, Darren Langdon. So he would have played with Darren in New York. And he came down to Darren's hockey school a couple of times, and I got to see him. And class act. He's never changed, and he's always got time for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a B-lister or a C-lister. He still has time and has a great memory, actually.
Yeah, he does. He remembers it. He remembers you. He remembers your name. It's pretty cool.
It's rare. It is rare. To see someone like that is humble and has the the chops that he has to actually find time for people that had a cup of coffee or not even a cup of coffee. And I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about anybody. And he will always take the back door rather than try and be the front liner.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of neat.
Yeah. Now you were drafted by Detroit, but did you have any hope of? Did you have a team in mind that you wanted to go to, or you're hoping to, or just wanted?
You know what, Tim? In my position, I really didn't care. I was like, just give me a chance. I just, coming from Newfoundland, it was a big deal for me just to get to play in the OHL and have some success here. Yeah. I really didn't care. Obviously, I love Detroit. I love their history. Gordie Howe was one of my favorite, hockey players. I never really saw him a whole lot, but obviously who wouldn't love Gordie Howe, hearing about the old stories and reading, the tales and all that and the pictures. But again, when I first started junior, I knew Bob Probert had played in Sault Ste. Marie the year before and went to the Memorial Cup. And the next year he's playing in Detroit, and or he might have started in Adirondack and went to Detroit a year after. But again, it was guys that I knew and I've seen play, and so it was pretty cool. And watching Yzerman all those years coming up, and class acts, and the red and white, like it's an original 6 team. I was very excited. Couldn't wait to get there. And they had a few Atlantic Canadians at the camp with respect to coaches. Dougie McLean was there at the time. So as soon as I got off the plane, as soon as I got to the rink, hey, Noof, how's it going? Guys that actually treated you with a bit of respect, and you weren't the token guy, because at that point when you get there, you're there. Like, there's none of this, you're from the Atlantic provinces, you're nobody. They had Gerard Gallant, guys like that were already made a name for themselves. So it was kind of nice to have some Atlantic Canadians in the team, and that treated you with a bit of kindness. And you're a rook, but still, it's nice to see someone from this area.
Absolutely.
But I know, again, Detroit, I was more than happy. Now, if it had been a Toronto or a Montreal or anybody like that, sure enough, I would have gone to California Golden Seals. I wouldn't have cared.
So obviously you had a great OHL career, and I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about your time in the ECHL. And obviously, if you look back at that and you look at the record books and some of the things you accomplished there, currently you're tied number 4 in all time for goals in the ECHL with 324. You're a member of the ECHL Hall of Fame. So I'm wondering, what was it like to get that call? Do you remember where you were when you got the call, and who did you call next?
I think I was just at home. I got a call, and I saw it was a New Jersey number, and I said, "Who the heck is calling me from New Jersey?" And I wasn't really thinking about it at all. Like, again, you look back at your career and say, because the ECHL Hall of Fame only started, I think, 10 years ago, if that. So they started voting people in 2009 or 2010. So I guess I was in the fifth class, I guess what you would call it. I know another Cornwall Royal, Tom Nemeth, was voted into the Hall of Fame, who I live with as well at Mrs. A's house. But again, I obviously, my wife was there. I told her I've just got voted into the ECHL Hall of Fame. The real cool thing about getting voted in that year, it was in Orlando, Florida.
Oh, cool.
Everywhere else, every other shithole in the U.S. they could have, but they had it in Orlando. It was beautiful. So we got to go away, and they flew us down to Orlando to go there. So we made a family vacation out of it. But it could have been anywhere. It could have been in Toledo. It could have been in somewhere in Wisconsin, anywhere. But it was Orlando. So it was beautiful. Here I was in the middle of winter in February, and I got to go to Orlando, Florida to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. So it was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Obviously, you're proud to call your parents and say I got inducted, because it means a lot to my dad, who's who's followed my career. He's coached me all the way up through, and that. So great. It was a great honor, very humbling experience, and I just get to meet all the guys that did it before, and meet some old friends that were coaching at that point. So and guys that I played for, guys that I played against were now coaching. So it was nice. It was a pretty cool call. If you're going to get a call for the Hall of Fame, it means I guess you're at the top of your league or whatever, but it meant a lot to me, because it meant enough to them to put you in there. And that's why I think you're ranked up there anyway.
Certainly something to be proud of, for sure. This might be an unfair question, but if the ECHL Hall of Fame was like the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, which team hat would you wear?
That's a good question. That is a very good question. I would probably have to say the Dayton Bombers, probably my first team. If not, it would probably be Richmond, the Richmond Renegades. But anyway, again, I look at where my 2 great years were. Was my first one. Obviously, I had a great year as a rookie, and 2 years later, I had another great year in Richmond. I had a lot of fun in Richmond. We had a good team. You know, later in my career, I was a player assistant coach, so my role was a little bit different. But solely as a player, it was Dayton in 91, 92, and 2 years later, 94, 95, I think it was, in Richmond. So, yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure, because I loved all the places that I played. And like I said, I only played in really three. I played in Dayton, Richmond, Raleigh, and Augusta. So Raleigh and Augusta were the same place, because Raleigh relocated to Augusta after the hurricanes came in. And after that, I shut her down in 99. Yeah, that's you stumped me on that one, because I really enjoyed playing on all of them. That's a good question. Yeah. How dare you do that? But anyway, yeah. Now, if there was ever an OHL Hall of Fame, there'd be no doubt in my mind where my loyalties would lie. Not even a thought. Cornwall Royals would always. Again, I bleed red, white, and blue. Like there's no other. And I mean Cornwall, because I still can't believe they don't have a team, and it'd be lovely to have it, because if they did, I'd go back and watch. I'd love to go back. It would be incredible.
Now watching hockey, speaking of watching hockey, do you get a chance to get out to any of the Growlers games?
Actually, I have a great relationship with them, Tim. I'm an ambassador for the Growlers. They actually, I dropped the ceremonial first puck at the, it was pretty cool. And I was
probably
out
in
there
Savard's garage, right?
What's that?
The puck in Savard's garage?
Yeah, possibly. But no, it was a great experience. They brought me in, and I've known those guys. Glenn Stanford was the general manager for the old St. John's Maple Leafs, which goes all the way back to 1991. I played a few games for them as well. But he got in touch with me and said, we'd like to have you part of the inaugural night. So I went out on the ice there with Alan Doyle, and segue for Chris there. Chris loves Alan Doyle. He was going to go see him this last summer or 2 summers ago. But he did the national anthem, so we all went out there with a couple of Newfoundland dogs, and with the president of the Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, and the premier. So I was up there with all the bigwigs.
Wow.
I said, you even dress up shit. So it was pretty good.
Awesome.
So anytime I go in there now, guys, I can pretty much get a suite, bring some friends along, and it's gratis on behalf of the Growlers, just from being in the league and from Newfoundland and being in the Hall of Fame. So, but it's a nice feeling. And I don't overuse it, because it's 7 hours away. But when I do go in and they're playing, I usually take in a game and bring some friends along. So it's pretty cool.
That's
and
awesome.
For an inaugural season, they did pretty damn good.
Yeah, they sure did.
Right. It's not very often you can pull that one off. I think Nashville was the only other one that, not Nashville, Vegas was the only one that came close to pulling off something like that. But to go in your first year into a league and pull it off,
that's pretty cool. Yeah. Switch over and talk a little bit about the AHL. You had a couple games there. You actually ended up, not surprisingly, playing very many regular season games in the AHL. You ended up, I think, playing only 2 regular season games, one in Binghamton and one in St. John's. So maybe a question about each one of them. First, I heard you once tell a funny story about getting called up. And I know you played some playoff games in Bingo, but tell us about your experience going up to Binghamton.
Well, what happened with Bingo was, after my first year in Dayton, I tore it up. I got Rookie of the Year, and Claude Noel, who was coaching us in Dayton, reached out to Ronnie Smith, who was coaching in Binghamton. He said, Ronnie, I got a kid here who is the Rookie of the Year in the league, and he scored 69 goals this year, and I have nowhere to send him. Would you take him to Binghamton? He said, sure, looks like we're going to have a long playoff run, and they did. Went all the way to the finals. So I ended up going to Binghamton and lived in a house with Doug Waite and Jason Persofsky and guys like that who were New York Ranger top draft picks. I just sat there for 2 months waiting to play. So I got to play one game in the I think it was the last game of the regular season. I had a goal. I think I had a goal and assist in Baltimore. And then I sat around for almost a month and a half waiting to play in the playoff, because they went right from the first round, second round to the third round. And I sat there watching, traveling, playing with the Black Aces every day, staying in great shape. But, after you don't play for a month and a half, you're kind of like, okay, this is are you going to send me home? So they started sending guys home. So I was expecting to get the pink slip anytime. I was the only one left after they sent everybody home. So I was living in this great big house, belonged to the general manager, all by myself. And I had his old 1975, I don't know what it was. I don't know, it was a Ford Fairlane or something like that, driving back and forth to the rink every day. So they kept me around till the finals, and I ended up playing in the last couple of games of the finals. And we ended up losing to Rochester. We ended up losing to Rochester. And I can remember, I'll never forget, because Robbie Ray, Buffalo was knocked out at that point, and he came down and said hello. And I was standing outside the Binghamton dressing room, and every guy in the Binghamton dressing room was yelling at me saying, "Don't you talk to that fucking guy. Don't you talk to that," because they didn't know that I'd played with him before. They just hated him so much from the year before that he was the biggest shit disturber. I said, "Guys, I played 3 years with him. He's a good friend of mine." "Oh, okay. All right. Just don't be making friends with that guy." I said, "Okay." Anyway, yeah. So Robbie, I realized Robbie has the same effect on the Binghamton Rangers that he had on every other team that he played against. But yeah, I got to play right up in the finals, scored a couple goals in the playoffs, but I never ever got that opportunity to sign a contract with respect to an NHL contract. Just things fell through, different timing, different opportunities. I got invited back actually to Binghamton the following fall, but I ended up signing a contract with Peoria in the ECHL, which was a different league in the International League. Which was older players, not as protected, and it was a bad decision. I should have gone back to Binghamton, paid my dues, and tried out. And whether I made it or not, I think Ron Smith would have given me a chance to play, because he did once he got me in there. He liked the way I played. So, but yeah, hey, you look back at those 2020 decisions, and you don't always make the right ones, right? But no, you've heard the other stories from the podcasts that I've done with Terry Ryan and talking about, not playing in the A as much. But back then, if you weren't a top draft pick, not many guys played in the A. They said, you know what, better money in the IHL. So they went that way. It's almost similar to the NHL and the WHA when that happened. But there was a lot more hockey and a lot more teams to play for. Right. So I didn't have great advice at that time either. So it kind of hurt me, but that's it, man. Those are things you go through, and you put it out there. And I had a great career in the ECHL and had some fun. But if I had gotten a little bit of a break in the AHL and whether it's work harder or made the right decisions, then maybe it could have been different. But that's it. Let's just say I had a lot of fun, met a lot of great people. And that's what it's all about.
Now you had a game or two with the St. John's Maple Leafs. What was that like as a newfie playing for the hometown St. John's Maple Leafs?
Well, I told a story about the year that I did get called up to Binghamton, that St. John's then got the bye to the Calder Cup finals, because once Binghamton lost, that means that Rochester had to play. No, sorry. I screwed it up again. Sorry. Rochester had to play Adirondack. So it would have been the Red Wings. So once we got knocked out, St. John's got almost a 3-week bye to go to the final. So they sat around for 3 weeks waiting to play someone. So that's where my relationship came in with Glenn Stanford. I was on my way home. Glenn said, "Darren, we want you to come to St. John's to play some hockey with the Leafs." Now, it wasn't in a league because they were waiting. But after that, that's how I got my opportunity to play with the Leafs. And it was in the same type of situation where I was on my way home. I had done my ECHL season, and the Leafs just called me up at the end of the year. And that was actually the year that Crawford and Quenneville, I think Quenneville was there that year. Crawford was there the year before. But at that point, it was more of a one-game opportunity, and it wasn't any chance to sign or anything like that. It was more of a, hey, you're from Newfoundland, come on home, let's play. Let's see what you can do. Never got a whole lot of ice time. Only scored 69 goals that year, but they never gave me a whole lot of ice time. But that's okay. I didn't mind it. I was just happy to be on George Street for a couple of nights and see some old friends. I had just as many friends in St. John's as I have in Corner Brook. So, but it was good. It was a different different scenario, obviously playing in your home province, and we with Tim, you've spoken with the Growlers there. They had 3 or 4 Newfoundlanders that actually played with them this year or the past 2 years. And what a great opportunity to play in your home province and go to your home rink every night and it's in your hometown. Like that's, again, you've been around guys that have played with Windsor and to know that feeling but there's nowhere to hide when you're playing in that situation.
Exactly.
You're going out on the street the next day. You're hearing it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's your hometown. Absolutely. So the pride has to be extra special.
That's for sure. Now you're now the coach and general manager of the Cornwall Royals.
Yeah.
Right. So now how can you tell us a little bit about how that's going?
Senior hockey in Newfoundland has always been a big deal. And I don't know if you know any of the history of senior hockey. It dates all the way back to the 40s. It's pretty high end hockey back in the 80s was the heyday. So it was pretty much a semi-pro league. There was some money flying around. There's been some near pro teams that played in that league in the 80s. And Cornerbrook won the Allen Cup in 85, 86. They beat the Nelson Maple Leafs, but they played the Brantford Mott's Clamatos. I don't know if you can remember that name, with Rocky Saginaw, Donnie Edwards, Stan Jonathan all played that year. I watched a bit of it because I was in Oshawa. That was in 85, end of the 86 in the spring. I played with the Royals the year before as a 16-year-old, and I ended up going to play junior the following year. The year before that, Cornerbrook, to give you an idea, lost to the Thunder Bay Twins at home. They went up 3-0 and lost 4 straight to lose the Allen Cup. So Thunder Bay came to town, and obviously all good Ontario Hockey League players came. They went down 3-0 and ended up winning 4 straight, beating Cornerbrook on their home ice 4 straight. Had to stay around a week. But Newfoundland senior hockey has always been a big deal because the import situation was always, Newfoundlanders are good hockey players, but they always brought in the guys from Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI, some guys from Ontario, that type of thing. So it was, I guess, community pride. It's no different than the Allen Cup League up there now with Hamilton and I don't know if Windsor has a team now, but mostly in the Golden Horseshoe there, they've got the Allen Cup League. Very similar. It's all high-end hockey players, but it's gone down a little bit now. But the thing that doesn't change is the community pride. And we play against Deer Lake now. Deer Lake is just up the road, and Darren Langdon coaches that team up there, so he's got his stamp on that team. We also play Port aux Basques, which is Port aux Basques Mariners. They're a seaport town. They got Juan Strickland, who's a Hall of Famer in Newfoundland. He put his stamp on that team. So there's all kinds of community stuff going on, and it doesn't matter what league you play in. You guys know you're playing for your Stanley Cup, and that's the way it is. Absolutely. And again, guys walking around the next day in your hometown or in the town where you live, you got to answer to it. So you put it all out there, right? That's the difference.
And on that note, another little plug, you're also a member of the Newfoundland Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that was a nice honor as well. It's, you're from here, and it came within a year or so after the ECHL one. And, and also an unbelievable honor because there's some great hockey players in the Newfoundland Hockey Hall of Fame. A good friend of mine nominated me. I didn't even know he did it. And it was a great surprise, and I got accepted, and got inducted the same year as Darren Langdon and a guy Dwayne Norris. I remember Dwayne Norris. Yeah. Scored a big goal for Team Canada in the World Junior.
The Senators now.
Yes, exactly, Josh. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So, but that pretty much ages us right there. His son is now playing for the Senators. That pretty much says it all right there. But again, to go in with those two guys, it was quite an honor. So it's a lot of fun. And again, I played, I came home in 99. I played senior hockey from 2001 to 2011. I ended up coaching. I won an Allen Cup as a coach. I coached the Clarenville Caribous in 2011. And that was a great opportunity as well. Ivan Hapgood coached that team, and he picked me up to go coach with them. I was coaching Cornerbrook that year, actually. And he said, Darren, I think you could help us. So I went along, and we ended up winning the whole thing. So it was pretty cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and again, it's a totally different level. It's senior hockey, and it's it's a one week of throw it all out there and see what happens. And I must say, anytime you win something like that, it's a pretty cool experience.
Pretty good feeling, absolutely.
Yeah.
And one more Corner Brook reference for you here. When I was a kid, I had one of my favorite players in the NHL. It was a backup goalie for the Detroit Red Wings named Doug Grant.
Oh, yeah.
And Doug is, he's a little older than you, I think 71, something like that.
Super friends.
Oh, what's that?
Oh, we're great friends.
Are you great friends? Well, please
Yes.
do me a favor and tell him I still have one of his game sticks that I don't even know how my dad got a hold of it, but he got it home and I still have it. And so please tell Mr. Grant I have his stick. If he wants it back, let me know.
I certainly will. And again, Tim, he had a memory I've never ever. He remembers every game he played. He talks about the Plager boys, how he got, and again, everybody has their stories about how they didn't make it and that type of thing. But listening to Doug talk about it, and there's no bitterness there. He just, Doug shut out the Montreal Canadiens. He shut out the Toronto Maple Leafs. And they gave the St. Louis Blues basically gave him the raw end of the stick because they had a young guy up and coming. And they brought Doug in to win. And then they let the other guy play, and it was I sat there amazed at how he could recall how things happened in his career, and you're talking in the early 70s. So I'm having a job looking back at the late 80s. How the hell does a guy look back and remember the early 70s, knowing game by game how things happened? And it's incredible to talk. But I've known Doug since I've been a kid. And
no,
again,
great guy, great. I just loved watching him, and it's funny because I'm a Leaf fan, so I don't even know where the hell I'd even started. But it must have been when my dad brought the stick home.
Yeah, no, he's definitely a legend in these parts. He's from Corner Brook originally, but a guy that you would know, not to start throwing names around now, a guy that you would know from Corner Brook, probably the best minor hockey player I've ever seen and I ended up playing with him. Wilf Payne is from here.
Yeah. So
Wilf played in Windsor, and he left 2 years before I even got there. He was, honestly, Tim, he was the best minor hockey player I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of goals because he was a big boy when he was in Pee Wee, and he would take shots from the red line, and the goaltenders would jump out of the net. And it was incredible. But we went to the Pure Later Cup, like that's the Atlantic Bantam Championship, and they had scouts in the stands then saying just couldn't wait to get him. And he didn't end up going to Quebec. He ended up going to Ontario. But I think Wilf was a victim to playing at the wrong time because the skill was unmatched. It's just that, what it was like in 1984, 85, coming in as a 16-year-old in the toughest league in Canada. You had to fight or you didn't play. And Wilf wasn't that type of player. Right, I think he just got beat. It got beat out of him. I'm not saying that he fought every night, but the intimidation factor of the early to mid '80s compared to what it is now is non-existent.
Night and day.
Non-existent. And I tell kids, and I even tell my son. My son's 23 years old, plays for the senior team here, talking about the difference between intimidation and real intimidation. Is you don't know it until you're actually standing in front of the net. And you look down and your teeth are on the ice. That's intimidation. And that's what we had to face every game. It was just, there was guys in the league that knew that their way to get to the next level was to inflict pain and put fear into the heart of the guys that were on the other team. And they did it. Like there was no, I'm just glad that I look back at it. I'm glad I missed the years of Mike Rowe and guys like that. Because I can remember talking to some players saying they used to write on their elbow pads, "Don't break my arm, Mike," or but just like they were, again. Apparently, he was brutal.
Yeah.
But there's every team had him. But a good friend of mine, he's gone now. God bless him. Greg Bird Dog Smith. He was very similar. Like Greg would just he'd lose it, and you just watch some of his films, and you say, wow, I played against this guy. How did I not get my head taken off? Because guys just didn't care. They knew that one way to get to the next level was to make sure that they were noticed, and that's how they got noticed. But the Doug Grant, he's the legend. He's the legend in these here parts, and obviously a Hall of Famer, and one of the first pros to come out of Newfoundland.
Yeah,
right out of Memorial University, which God only knows who knew they had a hockey team. So he said he went from Memorial University to play pro. So it was pretty neat.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You've been generous with your time. We'll ask you a few more and we'll let you get out of here.
Oh, no worries, man.
So we're going to jump. I'll let you ask your next one, Tim, after I ask this one. I want to talk a little bit about the movement that you're aware of with Ken Gallagher and some of the guys in Cornwall trying to bring an OHL team back to the Seaway City. So your thoughts about the Royals going back to Cornwall? Do you see that as a viable market, and how excited would it be to see a team there again?
I'm super excited to hear that they're working at it. Obviously, you both know that you have to sell season tickets. So I don't know where they are with respect to season ticket sales. I don't know what they have as a pledge, if they have the opportunity to see what their fan base would look like. And guys, honestly, I haven't been there in a long time. It's what does the what does the climate like for hockey in Cornwall? I know that they've tried the LNAH, and they've tried Junior B, they've tried Junior A, they've tried an academy. Cornwall was always a great hockey town, but again, it has to sell. And I think, yes, the OHL is the best market, and it is the best builder of talent. It is the most exciting game out there, but you got to be able to back it up as well. I know it was dealt a raw hand with respect to the way it was moved, which is too bad, because I think with the players that they had there that were coming through there, they were great. They were great players, and they had good teams. So something went wrong somewhere, but now if they have the opportunity to rectify it, I think it's a great time to do it. Coming off of the shit that we're going through right now with all this pandemic, and teams are going to be, thinking twice about what they're doing. And I don't know if they have an opportunity for a team to move. But I think it's the market right now where it's so far east. I think that's the issue. I think that's always been the issue. And would they think about possibly going to the Quebec League? I don't know. That would be a great opportunity. If the OHL won't take them, what else do they have to lose? Because they've got Quebec teams in every province, pretty much. I think they're in the state. Do they still have a team in Maine? They had them in the States. They had them in PEI, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. They had them in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
Lord, I don't see what the difference is now, why they wouldn't go back there if there's an opportunity.
You guys probably wouldn't mind what league, as long as they got a team, right?
Exactly right. I think I feel bad for those guys that are diehard hockey fans that are running around to Ottawa with their Cornwall jerseys on, and Kingston with their Cornwall jerseys on. Yes, it's nice that they're good hockey fans and Cornwall hockey fans, but they need to get behind it, and everybody needs to get behind it. So I don't know what the appetite is there for everybody in Cornwall. Chris and Tim, I don't know. I'm not there. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I'd sure like to see them try.
Well, I think
I think maybe once they'll get you back there for the inaugural puck drop. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I'm going anyway. I'd love to. It'd be awesome. Yeah.
Well, I think what happens is cities take the OHL for granted. Really, it's so nice to have it, and you just kind of always get used to having it, and you don't realize what you have until it's gone. And as you say, they've struggled for a long time to get a team back, and let's hope they do well. It's just guys like you that are always supportive of their movement. I see you on Twitter. You're always endorsing and retweeting and doing good things. So who knows? Let's hopefully everybody gets together. It could happen for them. Sorry,
and again, I always see Matt McGuffin is always he's always pushing the Cornwall, and guys that have played there. I'm sure everybody would love to see the Royals get their team back. Again, I look behind you, and it brings back a lot of memories when I see those jerseys, and everybody says what a weird logo, but you know what? It's synonymous with the Cornwall Royals. There's nothing else like it, and it's a simple little logo that nobody would ever mistake on where that jersey came from. And that's the unique thing about it, is that's there. I visualize Howarchuk and Gilmore and Arneal and Smith, and all those guys had that same logo on their jersey. And it's a shame, because I even looked at your first podcast there, and And he said, who are these Cornwall Royals that you speak of anyway? And you kind of defended us, saying that, these guys were legends. This jersey was feared when it came to Memorial Cup time because they did some damage. And like I said, it's up until the time that they left, it was very similar to a Peterborough Pete or a Kitchener Ranger, or because those guys had success at that level as well. But unfortunately, it was taken away. It's too bad.
Yeah. And now, would it be safe to assume, Darren, that Cornwall was your favorite place to play?
Oh yeah, for sure. Just everything, the way things transitioned for me, Tim, it was just so. It was what I needed at the time, and it was like a storybook ending for me with respect to junior hockey, because it went from just not enjoying myself, not even wanting to play, to wondering, trying to get the nerve up to say, who am I going to tell? What am I going to do? My parents came up one time and they told them that they didn't think that I could play at this level. And my dad never ever told me that until years later. And my dad had enough confidence in me to say to them, well, he's not coming home. You guys figure it out.
Deal with it.
Deal with it. So they kept me there, and I never even told my dad that I was going to ask for that trade. And thank God I did, because again, I grew up in a hurry, and I knew I had to do it. But you talk about being sheltered from grown-up things at a young age. Again, it was just something that I knew I had to do, and I don't feel like a bigger person because of it, but that's how strongly I felt that I needed to get out of there to try and to do something with my life. And school was school. I was doing well in school. There was no issue. But I just said, you know what? If I'm going to enjoy the rest of this, I at least want to give myself a chance to play. And this is no fault of the Oshawa Generals. None. It was about Cornwall. Orval gave me the opportunity to do it. And that's what I owe him. I owe him everything, that he not only brought me in, but gave me the opportunity to play on the first line right from day one. And he could have done the same thing to me that everybody else would have done, is, we're just getting this guy and we're going to give him a shot and then go from there. He gave me the opportunity to succeed, and that's all you could ask for.
That's awesome. You know what, Darren, I think we've eaten up tons of your time. I got to tell you how much we appreciate you taking the time to do this. Certainly Tim and I are no seasoned podcast guys, and just basically two guys that thought we could do this. And, we reached out to guys that we knew would carry the load on the first couple interviews. So thank you for being so generous with your time. Thank you for making this go so smoothly. I think back to your time. I remember when you came to Cornwall, and I remember the impact that you had on the folks through Mrs. A's house, just anybody that talked to you in the community. And even, I'm no longer in Cornwall, but still have connections with folks back there. And when your name comes up, there's always a sense of, geez, what a class act. Colby was really good for the city of Cornwall, great ambassador. And I think everybody followed your career with a great sense of pride, wanting to make sure that we kept tabs on where you're going. And, as much as you weren't for the hometown team anymore, you were always a Royal. And I think everybody shared a great deal of pride in your success. And I'm sure you look back at your time and your career and think, wow, it was a pretty good run. And in some ways, really glad that our paths crossed and we got to spend a little bit of that together in Cornwall. Drank a few pops and probably kept Mrs. A up longer than we should have some nights, but
she enjoyed it too.
Thank you so much, Darren. We really appreciate you doing this. Any closing comments you want to give?
Well, guys, again, Chris, thank you very much for this. It brought back unbelievable memories. Very kind words, by the way. Thank you so much. You rekindled a lot of great feelings in me. Great seeing you again, Tim. A real pleasure. And don't underestimate yourselves, guys. You're doing a great job. Very professional. You pulled some out of the hat here tonight, because you surprised me on a few of them, so it was pretty cool. So you're doing your research. That's the big thing, obviously. And again, just a real pleasure to talk to both of you. And again, anybody would feel, I'm sure, that if they enjoy talking hockey, talking to a couple of the boys about good old days and even things that are going on these days, why wouldn't you? So thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you very much, Darren. It was so nice to meet you and great to talk with you. Thanks for everything.
And
Thank
again,
you, Colby.
soon.
Stay safe.
Take care, guys.
See you later,
See you, Tristan.